Morning. My name is John Very, Futurologist at the John Lewis Partnership, and this morning I'm going to share 10 insights to hopefully provide you with a window into my role as a futurologist. So here's an exercise that I run frequently in the business, and I get that if I did this with you today, you'd all pass with flying colours. But I typically ask the people that I'm working with to sit, look down at a piece of paper, and I get them to look at each other and give them about 45 seconds to sketch each other's face. Instantly, people apologize. People start to cover their beautiful creations, and people start to moan. I'm not a really good drawer. And for me, this is a really interesting behavior because it's fear right there. Now, I've done it so many times, and you apply that thinking to an idea generation session, you apply it to the kickoff of a project, it only ends in one way, extremely narrow output. So part of my role as a futurologist is to encourage people to suspend the fear. And we do that through a number of different ways, which I'll talk about in a moment. But to be quite frank, I've done it with children on numerous occasions, and the fear just doesn't exist. And there's a video for this clip I'll show at the very end. Now, in 2017, I did a piece of work to explore the world of 2030. And one of the 3 scenarios I focused on was death as a curable disease. Bear with me for a moment. And so let's just take Florence Nightingale as an example. And during the Crimean War in the late 1850s, she was able to lower the mortality rate from about 40% down to about 3-4%. By introducing charcoal as a disinfectant and removing horses from under the hospitals. Now I get it, you could Google and probably kick those numbers to pieces. But what I tried to at the time was elaborate on the fact that Florence Nightingale, given the chance, would have stopped everyone dying. The problem was with science and technology and the human anatomy. And that kind of took me down a rabbit hole. I mean, just Googling curing death, you unearth articles about Priscilla Chan and Mark Zuckerberg investing $3 billion to cure every disease. You see Sergey Brin, one of the co-founders of Google, investing huge amounts of money to cure Parkinson's. You even find a company in the west coast of America called Alcor. For a large amount of money, you can pay to have your body frozen after your death in the hope for a cure. But transhumanism, is the belief that in the future there will be no physical and mental limitations. Form of transhumanism right here. Without these, I can't see the front row. But with them, I can see the back row. I have extended human capability because of these things. And there are endless examples, pacemakers, devices for people with diabetes. And that really kind of provoked a curiosity in me. And worryingly, that wasn't I should say exciting. It wasn't a prediction. It was used as a tool to help partners, help colleagues I work with suspend their disbelief. So by design, those 3 scenarios, they would absolutely make people more curious. They would blow their minds. They'd absolutely make them scared. But hopefully as well, there'll be an element of excitement in that. Because it's extremely difficult to encourage people to just naturally step out of the present space. So there are a range of tools that we use to do that. Now, weak signals are very much the currency that I'm obsessed with. Now, weak signal is the complete opposite to a trend. They are unquantifiable. There is very little data to suggest that they're going to amount to something. They're rogue and often ignored, but I love them. Most of the time, they end up becoming a trend. And I have an example of a weak signal. So in 2017, I was actually giving a talk in the John Lewis Kingston shop to a bunch of customers. I have no idea why I was doing that, but it felt like a great idea. And it proved right, because at the end, a lady came over to me and said, would it be okay if my 14-year-old daughter come and spend a day working with you? And I said yes, as long as she was willing to take part in an exercise. So she turned up on the Monday, and I had given her this question. I want you to explore the future of the John Lewis Partnership, where humans and machines work side by side. What does it feel like? It took her about 3 minutes before she ripped up the brief and said, I'd much prefer to explore how machines can challenge gender-based biases. I was like, okay. So my ego was a little bit damaged, but she elaborated. She said, around 40% of the people in my class don't recognize as having a gender. I was like, okay. This started to go down a territory that was really unfamiliar with me, which is really good. So anyway, so she really hammered home the brief by showing me the Facebook sign-up page, which had over 78 different genders to choose from. Now, right now, that might not be a surprise, but in 2017, that was the weak signal. That was something that was really interesting to me. So she then, from that point, extrapolated and built a device, which you can see behind me, that would allow people to augment their voice when using a Google Home, Siri, Alexa, so that people wouldn't be recognized as being male or female based on the frequency of their voice. That was done in like 3 days. That was really interesting for us to access that type of knowledge. So I always say yes to work experience students as long as they're willing to take part in an exercise, which they all do. Futures Constellation is the next one. We called it the Futures Constellation, and this is a tool that we built about 18 months ago now, because wherever you stand, however you think and whatever you look at, the future will be different to you. In the same way, if you look up into the sky, the constellation will look different depending on whether you're in the northern or southern hemisphere. Now, this Futures Constellation is made up of 5 sets of nodes, from the center, which is the present space, to the outside, which is the future scenarios. We decided to go with this method because the future isn't linear and it is interoperable with many other different systems that are happening because of other systems happening daily. And so we've got the present space in the center, typical nodes like digital, technology, environment, and so on, mobility. The next set of nodes are processes, the processes that are influencing the present space. So mass urbanization will be influencing environment and so on. Then you've got trends. These are the opposite of the weak signals, the trends that we're seeing in the here and now. So NFTs, climate crises, really important nodes that are quantifiable. The next step are the weak signals. These are our currency. These are the evidence of change in the here and now. These are the things that people are bypassing to get to the trends. This helps us gradually, and hopefully you can see it here, create these pathways, these stepping stones to a possible future. So then in the future scenarios, which is the surrounding ring, this is where we can use our imagination to start to imagine and then design preferred futures. Our role, my role, is not about predicting the future. It's about creating the future. And so with this constellation, and by the way, unfortunately I can't show it here, but you can click into every single node and that will show you basically a Wikipedia that we've built of all of our research. So colleagues, all 70,000 partners in the business, can get in and actually start to move this constellation around based on how they see the future. Application is, I'm probably going to say each one of these is the most important, but application is probably the most important. Because without application, we just become a bunch of researchers, which is really, really important. But for me, working in the John Lewis Partnership, it has to amount to change. Change is a word that we hear a lot about, and it's so important that we kind of generate that mindset of change. It's the only constant. It's the only constant. And so we worked on a piece of work last year looking at the future household in 2042. And to begin with, I can't show you the full project, but I can show you where we started. We just broke open what the household might look like as a structure in 2040s. And so for us, it was very much around breaking it into different places, so actors and design. So with actors, we looked at multi-species, so the role of plants, biome, the role of animals and pets, alongside the role of the family, so adults, children, and even frozen embryos. And so that really helped us think from a human and planet-centric approach. Then in the lower half, this was very much around home, the home as a service. And we've all experienced this over the last few years, the workplace, the shelter, the school and food provider, alongside the home as an experience, the feeling of well-being, the feeling of safe place and being our temple. From that point, we were able to then create a set of needs. So we kind of ripped up Maslow's hierarchy of needs and imagined what would Maslow's hierarchy of needs look like through this new structure. And so instead of being about self-actualization, we landed on at the point of the pyramid about being good ancestors for this planet. So externalizing relationships, again, it's something that I take a lot of pride in. So each year for the last 4, maybe 5 years, we've worked with Northumbria Design for Industry students to set speculative design briefs where we ask them specific questions. So in 2018, we set an urban scavengers brief, a bit ahead of its time, I guess, but we asked them to imagine bypassing John Lewis and Waitrose in search for new sources of energy. So to give you an example, turning baby wriggles or tears into energy as an example, just to help them kind of think a bit more differently around the challenge. And so one of the case studies here is Danielle Kofi. She created something called SAPU. She took the fats, oil, and greases challenge that we have in the sewers and basically created a product where you could use fats and grease waste from cooking into this device to make beautiful bars of hand soap. And bird feeders, and that was a really special project to be involved in, mainly because Danielle went on to win loads of awards with Fast Company. Influencing others to think differently, this is something that I've been really trying hard over the last 18 months, is how can we get other people in the business to think future first, not we've got a problem, how will this expand over time? Actually, what's the future problems, and how can we leapfrog a lot of these problems today by creating a preferred future? And I don't think it should replace it. It should work and augment that traditional kind of way of thinking. And so what we do is we work with a team. They give us a question. So, for example, last year, this commercial team asked us that they wanted to understand what the partnership would need from their team in 15 years' time. So we built a repository of future scenarios to help them shift out of the present space. And then we asked them to pick 3 scenarios to determine the impact of those 3 scenarios across 5 lenses: society, tech, environment, economy, and political. That then generated a whole load of problems and opportunities, and then in part 3, they would take those problems and opportunities and turn them into a set of needs. Needs is something that I do talk about a lot. But working with some business people, it's really challenging to get them to go from here to 20 years in the future. So by just helping to reframe their thinking and ask them to imagine you're in 2042, write yourself a poem today on how it feels like. Suddenly, even just something as simple as that just gets them to think slightly different, and you'll see an example of the poem on the screen. And then from that set of needs, they're able to then typically use Lego, Play-Doh, just something different that they would normally do, create a set of products that meet those new needs. So number 8, attracting talent. So each year I work with a student from, there's no specific area that they come from. I basically post on LinkedIn that I'm looking for someone to join me in September, and I get a whole bunch of people message me and ask me to come and join for the paid placement. And so I just wanted to share kind of 5 things that are really important when I do that, when I look for that person, because it's really hard to think in this way off the bat. So neurodiversity is the greatest skill. I would say that. I have dyslexia and I have ADHD, and for me, that is an important trait that has helped me kind of develop this, I call it a superpower. Thinking fearlessly to design that preferred future is really hard when we're focusing really on the problem 9 times out of 10. And so I really want people to think in a more divergent way, which leads on to making and playing. I have a skunk works in the basement of John Lewis Victoria. We have laser cutters, we have 3D printers, we have soldering booths, spray painting booths, because 9 times out of 10, that is the starting point for any project. That thinking through making alongside this kind of curiosity and discovery has been really good for us over the last 10 years. And so lastly, I've spoke about divergent thinking, kind of leading to opportunities today. Storytelling is such an important skill. And again, we've talked a lot about it today. So when I meet people, trying to understand, like, what are they like storytelling? You know, is it something that comes natural to them? And if not, is there a way that I can help them develop that skill? I want to just flash this screen. This is the location of my first ever job. Aged 11, I was a barrow boy in Peckham, southeast London. And at 4 a.m., I used to pull the barrow out from those sheds each morning. And it is the place that I remember learning the importance of people. You know, connecting with people, kindness, and most of the time, the absence of kindness. You know, it was a tough thing growing up in Peckham in the 90s. But now I look back and, you know, my ability to connect with people, my ability to empathize and understand has meant that now I focus on needs. Whether I'm focusing on the future or focusing on right now, what do people need? And lastly, following on from people, emerging generations. Now, last year, I promised my 10-year-old son, 9 at the time, Noah, that I would spend a day with him to tell him about my futures, but also hear about his futures. And so I promised to run a workshop with him. So it turned out there were 3 other parents in my team that had 9-year-old boys. So I ran a workshop with them. Now, admittedly, I am extremely thoughtful. So I have a 16-year-old daughter, and she wanted to come and join us, but she couldn't make it. But I tried my hardest to find 9-year-old girls around the business to come and join the team. And it was extremely challenging. I'm really thoughtful where we would have landed if we would have had 9-year-old girls in the team. So I'm just going to share a really quick video, but their brief was to imagine a future where they had already solved the climate crisis. What did they create?
I'm just making one. I need any of bricks like this. Thank you. I need any brick.
I mean, what happens on the planet is real, and I'm just curious to understand what you guys think the future of the planet, what your future is like, what my future is like. What job do you want in 20 time?
I want to be a director.
Directing what?
Directing movies, and I also want to be a video game maker.
I can explore in 20 years' time, just living. I like spending time with animals, and that's fun to me. Like, 20 years' time, I'd probably be in some jungle.
Astronaut, go to like Mars.
I want to be YouTuber, videos.
Play-Doh time.
Yeah!
To name your creation.
My creation is a damaged tree.
I'm making a plastic bottle.
And then this could be the smoke coming out as pollution, and then this could be the water line that it's going on, and then plastic in the water. And then this could be someone chopping down a tree, like this.
When you hear the words climate crisis, how does it make you feel? What do you think?
Depressed.
It makes me feel sad, and also it makes me think of like this big black cloud in the sky.
Imagine if you're married in 2042, what would marrying mean?
Something which can fire plastic up into space and then get it burned by the sun underwater.
It makes me feel excited, but then also worried at the same time that we're not going to stop the climate crisis. But then it makes me excited that we're going to travel to new planets, new universes and galaxies.
First, the Pac-Man comes and he swims along along the ocean, and he picks up like the garbage in the ocean.
The toy factory had a pipe that converts all of them into this room that people could make into toys and give it to us, the humans.
So the rocket launcher can fire these into the sun up here when they get melted.
Then the resin dragon comes along. He starts flying with his head. He goes over to the sun. These apples are his diet, so he eats it.
And I mean, these kids, I mean, generations that are emerging, they represent the future of our students, the future of our colleagues, the future of our customers. And so it's important, I think we owe them a service to listen and try to create futures that are relevant and safe for them to grow in. And that is the end of my talk. Thank you very much for listening.